should we have expected anything different from season 4, episode 7, especially since 4 and 7 keep coming up, 47 people, that number just keeps popping up. So we should have just known that this episode was going to be, and it was, the best episode of the season so far. The way that this episode ended really confirmed maybe what's really about to happen for the rest of the season, because I truly think we're getting the signals that the cycle is getting ready to start. And then we finally got the monsters back, and they didn't come back and they just didn't walk around and just, stray through the streets or get ran over by an ambulance or something like that. They actually came back with a vengeance this time. And before I go any further, let me go ahead and throw up the spoiler warning now, because I'm not sure how much of this episode is going to be safe for anybody if you haven't seen the episode already. So spoiler alert right now, just to go forward. That way we have that out of the way. But like I said, the monsters are back and they, chase down poor Kenny, and we're going to talk about what happens in that situation as well. And then not only did Roger come back, we got zombie Roger, and that was interesting, especially when he tore his face open, because it had me thinking, wow, like what the fuck is going on with Roger? Is he regular Roger or is he, doll Roger? Because to tear your mouth open, and you remember he had his face ripped off, so I'm not sure how much of his face was actually intact. But it was actually interesting to see him running around the house at the end of the episode as well. And then we're definitely going to talk about that bag of human teeth that Victor found in the Man in Yellow's car. And we're going to mention that little flashback. And I'm not really sure what it means, so you guys are going to have to let me know what you think about it. That flashback that Tabitha had of herself as Miranda riding in Miranda's car. And I wonder where she was going in that moment. Was she on her way to Fromville? She could have been going anywhere. She could have been going to the grocery store, but, why have that flashback in that moment? It's honestly probably from when they first arrived in the town and she's probably just looking around. But that's just my theory, but we'll get into that as well. But let's go ahead and dig into this episode and talk about where we're going from here, because this episode laid the groundwork for a lot to happen. We have Henry over here hallucinating. We have Boyd coming up with their plan and how they're going to go down in the tunnels, and they're going to use the totems as weapons against the monsters. They're going to have Acosta put a crew together. That way they can search the cellar and the diner and go through all the records and stuff like that, because he's just trying to figure out who this Man in Yellow is. And we know who the Man in Yellow is. And even if they find out any records of the Man in Yellow, it's not going to matter right now. The only thing that's going to matter is if they find records of Sophia or whoever Sophia may have been before. Then they'll find their Man in Yellow. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and start with the Henry Hospital hallucination, because we knew that something was going to be happening with him after he, consumed Sophia's blood last week in that bottle when they were having their little drinking session in the bar. So now we kind of see it playing out through this episode where he spends a lot of this episode honestly kind of tripping and kind of going a little bit crazy, and he's having these flashes of him being in a hospital with light shining in his eyes, and then he has this really clear hallucination where he's in a hospital bed with the doctor shining the light in his eye, and he sees Victor with a haircut and all that stuff like that. And he's, not the Victor that is in Fromville. And I think this is the beginning of him convincing himself that, you know what, maybe I'm just in a dream and I need to wake up. And if that sounds familiar to you, that is what I'm going to call the Abby syndrome, because that is the exact same thing that happens to Boyd's wife, because she thought when she could go around town shooting everybody, and that would wake them up. So I'm not sure if Henry's going to go around town shooting anybody to wake him up, but he may have this thought that, he could do something to wake everybody up, and that's going to be bad for everybody. Next, we have the craziest and probably the dumbest thing that happened in the episode, and even Donna agrees with that, because Boyd and Jade and Tabitha decided to tell everybody, including the kids, that Jade and Tabitha are Miranda and Christopher reincarnated. And nobody is really buying this shit. And they have a bunch of questions. And when you have a bunch of questions, if two people that you've been living with for a while come to you and tell you, hey, you know what? I'm a reincarnated version of somebody that was here 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. And, I'm just happen to be here again. And this just keeps happening to me because we have to find the children and we have to save them and we have to get the bones and we have to do something with the bones, because we don't know what we have to do with the bones yet. We just know we have to get the bones. And once Henry and Victor hear about this, they are extremely pissed off. Victor is probably the angriest I've ever seen him, and Henry's already been tripping this entire episode, so him hearing this didn't really do anything different. But the fact that this moment actually kind of springs Victor into action to go look for the Man in Yellow's car is another thing, and we'll talk about that in 1 second. But just finishing up this thing about the whole Jade and Tabitha being Miranda and Christopher from the past, nobody's buying this, even though we know it's real. Nobody's going to buy this, and this is probably the start to the cracks that start breaking the community apart. Because there are going to be some people that believe them, and then there are going to be some people who inevitably just think this is bullshit and that the town is playing tricks on their mind, and they may want to do something bad to these people. So this could be the beginning of the cycle or the beginning of the end for Jada and Tabitha, unfortunately. And then that takes me briefly to Victor and the teeth and, the ones that they found in the man in yellow's car. The big thing that I took from that is the fact that he wanted to give Tabitha those teeth and he thinks they're going to protect Ethan, because Victor came to town with his sister and his mom. Tabitha came to town with her kids as well. And, just happened to be a boy and a girl. Although she did also come to town with her husband, Jim, and Victor's dad didn't make it to town, even though he's there now. I'm not sure if that correlates in any type of way, but I could kind of see where Victor's going with this. And even Victor is starting to see what I believe is going to be the beginning of the cycle starting over. And then the only other thing that we have to really talk about is the Kenny of everything, because I just knew we were about to lose Kenny tonight and my heart was beating fast and I really started to get scared because I really like Kenny and I've been anticipating his death for a while. And I really thought it was coming tonight because he was truly backed into a corner. And this is where everything just kind of takes a left turn because now we're starting to see that I'm not sure if it's because she created this golem or if it's because, I guess it is somewhat her kid. But Fatima told us that she has a connection to Smiley, and that connection came through perfectly tonight because when Smiley was chasing down Kenny, Fatima was right there seeing everything through his eyes. And what does that mean? The fact that she can see everything through Smiley's eyes and somewhat control him, because that is the only reason that Kenny made it out of that situation alive. And that's because she basically froze Smiley for a brief second and Kenny knocked him off the bus and jumped back inside and closed the door. So I'm not sure what that means for Fatima and her connection to Smiley, but she told us that she had a connection to him, and I didn't know it was this type of connection because this is maybe even more powerful than a psychic connection because this is almost like a direct link. And it's funny too, just to bring some humor to the situation, that earlier in the episode that Jade was calling Kenny Coach Kenny because he was worked at a youth sports place as an administrator, and he did a lot of acrobatics in this episode, so I guess he earned that Coach Kenny nickname. But needless to say, Kenny wouldn't have had to do any of this if they didn't come up with that atrocious plan to try to kill the monsters with the totem, because that didn't do anything but make the monsters laugh at him. And they had Kenny trapped dead to rights. They had the entire plan snuffed out. And now I think we're about to get into the situation where early in the season and even before the season started, I believe, but definitely early in the season, everybody was talking about a mole and who that mole could be, because the only reason the monsters knew that they could cover every exit that Kenny had to go into the house, the only one they missed was the bus, but maybe that was a trap. They had to have been told in some type of way. We saw Sophia at several different moments in this episode doing some type of spiritual chant. And I'm pretty sure that was just to wake up Roger when he was in his doll form, when we saw him storm the house and go crazy. And she was standing at the top of the stairs just watching all of the chaos ensue. And she seemed pretty thrilled. And the only time she seemed rattled in this episode was when Boyd was going about the plan with the totem. So maybe those totems do have some sort of power, but maybe they only affect the man in yellow, but I'm not really sure. But she seemed somewhat alarmed only in the moment when it came to those totems. Everything else she seemed relaxed about. But going back to how it all ended, and you see how everything played out in this episode with Fatima being able to somewhat control Smiley, with Sophia basically setting in motion what I think is going to be the start of the town kind of fracturing, because we have Zombie Roger, we have Patty with the burnt face, we have Boyd's terrible plan that didn't work out and almost got Kenny killed, and I'm sure that's not going to go over well with anybody in the next episode. We have this mole situation, and who knows how that's going to play out, and it's really going to shake up the community because now everybody's going to wonder, because Boyd came up with this plan and he told different people, and those are going to be the obvious people, at least first, that people assume the mole can be, and who just happens to be one of those people that nobody likes, and it just happens to be Sarah. And I guarantee you this is going to get pinned on Sarah in some type of way. I guess I shouldn't say guarantee, but Sarah's going to come up very, very heavily in this mole conversation. But I don't really know if there's a mole because Sophia, like I said, was up there chanting, and that was probably to wake up Roger. But she has these powers, and I'm pretty sure, well, I can't say I'm pretty sure, but I theorize that Sophia probably has a connection with the monsters as well. So she's probably the one who connected to them some type of way and let them know what the plan was for Boyd and the tunnels, and that's probably why it didn't work. And I could be wrong, and maybe that's just a little bit too easy, but she's running everything. She just woke up Roger from the dead. So who's to say she doesn't have some type of psychic link to the monsters as well? I just don't think there's a real mole. And if there is a mole, I don't think it's Fatima, because if it was, she had the opportunity to let Kenny die. So I think that X's her out. Donna was basically on bed rest, and while she could be doing things while she's on bed rest, I doubt that she had any real control over the situation. So I really think that crosses out Donna. So who does that really leave for the actual mole to be? I really don't know right now, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but let me know what you think about who this mole could be down in the comments, because that is definitely going to come back up if you've seen this episode. So now let's talk about some of the hidden clues in this episode. So the one thing I want to start with is the whole teeth thing. We saw Victor find a teeth in the car, and we saw earlier in the season that Sophia pulled out one of the priest's teeth from his mouth and, kept it as some type of token. And I'm not sure if she walked out here at some point and put the tooth in the car with the rest of the teeth, but what is the importance of the teeth? It has me wondering if whatever the man in yellow is requires something from their body, which, in this case, it would be a tooth, and a tooth is pretty easy to conceal and hide away, especially, in your car. But what if it needs those teeth in order to kind of ground itself and be able to shapeshift into whoever it wants to be? And maybe this is how the man in yellow is able to shapeshift into Sophia and probably anybody else, because we know the man in yellow that we originally saw isn't technically the first person that this entity has been. That was just a person that it was at that time. So it just has me wondering, what is the importance of this teeth? You guys let me know down in the comments what you think it is. I think it has something to do with the shape shifting, and that's the reason that she's able to shape shift. But let me know what you guys think about the teeth. So the next thing I want to talk about is this whole plan to go into the tunnels. What do you guys think about this? Because everything that played out in this episode now has me thinking that these guys going down into the tunnels is basically a big trap. Kenny even mentioned it in the episode that, when they explore, it's going to push back, and it's probably going to push back hard. So what do we really think is going to happen if and when they go down in these tunnels? Because judging by the way this episode ended and the chaos that's starting to ensue, I'm not even sure if it's a good idea for them to go down in the tunnels. But of course, they're going to feel like they have to, because this is part of the mission to try to get out. And maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. But this is probably a trap, and somehow maybe the man in yellow actually wants them to find the bones, because maybe he needs the bones to complete some type of ritual to expand the town. And why would it want to expand the town? Because although 47 is a nice number, maybe we can do 74 and just have more people to eat. And that's just a fun theory. I'm just kind of playing around with that one. But there is a reason why the man in yellow is kind of allowing some of this to happen. And I'm wondering if it's because he may want the bones, or maybe just want to take them out of the cycle altogether. And as long as he knows where the bones are and nobody else does, then there's nothing that they can do about this in any cycle that comes after this if these guys aren't successful. And let's go back to Fatima real quick and talk about her whole connection that she has with Smiley. So when she was talking early in the season about Smiley one day being outside her window and, them looking at each other and her not knowing what she would do, that wasn't this exact situation, but maybe the window was a metaphor, because she was able to see through a window of sorts and see right into Smiley's eyes and what he was looking at and what he was about to do. And she was able to stop it. Now, is she drawing this power from the Golem, or is this a power that she naturally has because she birthed Smiley? And if that's the case, does she has a connection to any of the other monsters as well? Because she was in the room with the Golem at the time that all of this happened. So it makes me wonder, did this happen because of the Golem and this gave her some type of subconscious psychic power? Is this because of she basically birthed Smiley and she has that type of mother-son connection to him? Like, what do you guys think it is, and what do you think her whole connection to everything is. And what do you think is going to happen with this Golem? Because I think this Golem may actually come to life at some point, especially with everything that's going on now. I mean, why not throw the Golem into the situation? But if it does come to life, is it going to be good or is it going to be bad? Because I don't think something that big coming to life is going to be really good for the colony house. That's just my opinion, but let me know what you guys think about it. So that is basically all I have for this episode. And episode 7, like I said, was a great episode. Season 4, episode 7, 47, 4, 7, whatever that means. And we're going to find out more about that, obviously. But this was a great episode, and I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. Let me know what you guys think about down in the comments. Please tell me in the comments what you think about this episode. Tell me about your theories and what you think is coming next coming. I think we have a hell of a season getting ready to wrap up, because I guess I was right in what I heard, because I told you guys that I heard that episodes 6 through 9 were going to pick up a lot. And episode 6 didn't pick up as much as this one did. So I think going forward that we're definitely in for a thrill ride, and I'm looking forward to it. But please don't forget to like and subscribe, and please let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.